I never thought I'd be in a place like this, writing to strangers on the internet about my wife, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been married to Sarah for 12 years. We have a beautiful 7-year-old daughter named Lily, and up until a few months ago, I would have said things were pretty good between us. Sure, we had our usual ups and downs, but nothing out of the ordinary. We were that couple people called solid, you know? The kind you see at barbecues together, smiling, making small talk, looking like they have it all figured out. But lately, things had changed. Sarah started acting different, distant. She wasn't home as much, always making excuses about work, meetings, or just needing space. At first, I figured she was stressed. I didn't want to push, so I gave her room. But then the lies started stacking up. She'd say she was with friends, but her stories never lined up. She'd come home late, smelling like a mix of perfume I didn't recognize and something I couldn't quite place. Then, the phone. Oh man, the phone. That thing never left her hand, always buzzing with messages that she'd brush off with, "It's just Karen from work," or, "Oh, just group chat stuff." But the way she'd hide it, it made my gut twist. Something wasn't right. I could feel it. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what I was about to discover. It was a rainy Saturday afternoon. I was hanging out with Lily while Sarah was off doing whatever she does when she's not home. Probably meeting a friend or whatever excuse she felt like throwing at me that day. Lily was playing quietly, coloring as usual. She loves to draw, and she's pretty good at it for a 7-year-old, so I always take a moment to check out her little masterpieces. This time, she brought over a picture that caught me off guard. It was one of those simple stick-figure family portraits, the kind kids draw with crayons, Lily, me, Sarah. But then I noticed something strange. There was another man in the drawing, standing next to Sarah, with his hand on her shoulder. I looked closer and saw she had drawn 2 dads. I laughed awkwardly. "Hey, sweetheart, who's this guy? Why are there 2 daddies in your picture?" I asked, pointing to the stranger next to Sarah. Her smile faded instantly. She looked scared, like I had caught her doing something wrong. Her eyes welled up with tears, and before I could say anything else, she whispered, "Mommy told me not to tell you." My stomach twisted. "Not to tell me what?" I asked, trying to stay calm. She hesitated, clearly torn between fear of her mother and trust in me. Finally, she blurted out in a shaky voice, "Mommy has another daddy. He lives in our attic." I froze. I thought she was just being a kid, maybe misunderstanding something, making up stories like they do sometimes. But the way she said it, so serious, so scared, it sent a chill through me. My mind raced, trying to piece together what I was hearing. "What do you mean, he lives in the attic?" I asked, my voice trembling now. Lily's tears spilled over. "I'm not supposed to tell you, Daddy. Mommy said it's a secret. He comes down when you're at work. They sleep in the attic sometimes." My heart stopped. The attic? That cramped, dusty space we barely used except to store Christmas decorations and old junk? There was no way this could be real. This had to be some kind of nightmare, but the more I thought about it, the more the pieces clicked together. The late nights, the lies, the unexplained absences. And now my daughter was telling me her mom had another man hidden in our home, right above my head. Without thinking, I stood up. I wasn't going to wait. I had to see for myself. I had to know if this was some messed up game or if I'd been the fool this entire time. "Stay here," I told Lily, barely managing to keep my voice steady. I marched upstairs, every step feeling heavier than the last. My mind was racing, my heart pounding in my chest. If what she said was true, then everything I thought I knew about my life, my family, was a lie. The attic door creaked as I pulled it open. Dust and stale air hit me as I climbed the ladder, my breath coming out shallow. I hadn't been up here in months, maybe longer. The only light came from a single bare bulb, casting long, eerie shadows. My hands were shaking as I pulled myself up into the dim space, my mind running wild with what I might find. At first, everything seemed normal. Boxes piled high, old furniture we hadn't used in years, and a bunch of forgotten junk. But then I saw it. In the far corner, hidden behind some stacked boxes, there was something that didn't belong. A small bed. And it wasn't just any bed. The sheets were rumpled, recently slept in. Beside it, there was a pile of men's clothes. My blood turned to ice as I spotted one more thing. A familiar, silky nightgown draped over the side of the bed. Sarah's nightgown. I could barely breathe. It felt like my heart had been ripped out of my chest and stomped on. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't some weird, innocent thing my daughter had gotten confused about. My wife had been sneaking some other guy into our home, into our bed, and they'd been using the attic like their personal love nest while I was downstairs, oblivious. I didn't know what to do. Rage and disbelief flooded through me, warring with each other, making it impossible to think straight. I wanted to tear the whole place apart, but something held me back. Instead, I did the only thing I could think of in that moment. I hid. I ducked into the closet, barely fitting between the coats and old clothes. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears, pounding like a drum. I waited, not sure what I was even waiting for, and then I heard it. Footsteps on the stairs. The footsteps got closer. The hatch creaked open, and I saw a pair of feet step into the attic. It wasn't Sarah, it was him. Tall, lanky, and every bit as disgusting as I'd imagined. He had the audacity to stroll right into my house, right into my space like he owned the place. He went straight to the bed, like this was his daily routine. My hands were clenched into fists so tight I could feel my nails digging into my palms. I wanted to jump out and tackle him right then and there, but I held back. I needed to hear what he had to say. I needed proof. And sure enough, a few minutes later, Sarah followed him in. I could barely believe it. The way she smiled at him, the way she laughed softly, like she was a teenager sneaking around with a high school crush. I felt sick to my stomach. My wife, the mother of my child, had been doing this right under my nose, and she didn't even care. I burst out of the closet. What the hell is going on here? The shock on Sarah's face when I stepped out from the closet was priceless. Her wide eyes, her mouth hanging open, frozen like a deer caught in headlights. The guy, this stranger in my house, flinched and stood up, but I wasn't looking at him. My eyes were locked on Sarah. "Mike, what are you doing up here?" She stammered, quickly trying to compose herself, but the guilt was all over her face. Her voice wavered, full of panic, like a kid caught sneaking out past curfew. "What the hell am I doing up here? What the hell are you doing up here?" I shouted, pointing at the bed, the clothes, him. "Lily drew me a picture, Sarah. A nice little family drawing with you, me, and some other guy. Care to explain?" Her face paled. She glanced at the man beside her, and then back at me. I could see the wheels turning in her head, the lies already forming on her lips. "Mike, this is not what it looks like," she said, her voice sickeningly sweet, like she thought I was stupid enough to fall for whatever bull *****T excuse she was about to feed me. "Oh really? Because it looks like you've been screwing this clown in our attic. Sarah, you thought I wouldn't find out." I shouted, my rage barely contained. She looked down at her feet for a second, then back up at me, her expression hardening. "You don't understand. I understand perfectly." I cut her off, stepping closer to her. "Lily told me everything. About your little secret second daddy up here, about how you two sneak around when I'm at work. How long has this been going on, Sarah? Weeks? Months? Years?" Sarah's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. She looked over at the guy again, like he might have something to say, but he just stood there, looking like he wanted to melt into the floor. I was done with him. "You, get the hell out of my house." I snapped at him. He hesitated for a second, like he might try to say something, but then thought better of it. Without another word, he grabbed his jacket and practically ran for the hatch, disappearing like the coward he was. The silence that followed was suffocating. I stared at Sarah, waiting for her to say something, anything that would explain what I had just walked in on. But instead, She crossed her arms and gave me this smug, defiant look. You know what, Mike? Maybe if you hadn't been so wrapped up in your own little world, you would have noticed a long time ago. She spat. It's not like we've exactly been happy, have we? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was standing there, turning this around on me like this was my fault. Are you seriously blaming me for your cheating? You're unbelievable. Oh, please, don't act like you're some perfect husband, she sneered. You're never around. You come home, you barely talk to me, you're always tired, always focused on something else. Maybe if you'd actually paid attention to me, I wouldn't have had to find attention elsewhere. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Was she really this selfish? This delusional? We both had jobs, both had responsibilities, but somehow this was all my fault? Don't even try to justify this, Sarah, I said, my voice cold. You lied to me. You brought some guy into our house, into our family's life. You used our attic like it was your personal motel room. And you have the nerve to stand there and act like you're the victim? Her face twisted into a snarl, her eyes blazing. Maybe I wouldn't have had to lie if you weren't such a cold, distant hole. I'm not some housewife you can just ignore whenever you feel like it. Mike, I needed more and you weren't giving it to me. I felt my blood boiling again. But this time, the anger was mixed with something else. Hurt. Deep, crushing hurt. You're unbelievable, I muttered, shaking my head. I'm done with this. After the attic, after she threw those words at me like they were knives, I couldn't look at her. I couldn't be in the same room. I stormed out, my head spinning, my hands shaking, feeling like I had just stepped into some kind of parallel universe. This wasn't my life. This couldn't be my life. I went downstairs, grabbed my keys, and left the house without saying another word. I couldn't stay. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. My mind was racing, my heart shattered. How had it come to this? How had everything fallen apart so quickly? I drove aimlessly for what felt like hours, my thoughts bouncing between rage and despair. I kept seeing that bed in the attic, kept hearing her voice, dripping with venom and lies. I needed more, she had said. More than what? More than the life we built? More than our daughter? I had worked my ** off to give us a good life, to provide for her and Lily, and this was how she repaid me? The betrayal was like a knife twisting in my gut. I felt like a fool. Every late night, every lie, every time she brushed me off, it had all been leading to this moment. She had been playing me for God knows how long, and I had been too blind to see it. I thought we were a family. I thought we were partners. But to her, I was just some guy she could use and throw away when she got bored. And Lily, what about Lily? What kind of example was this setting for her? That it's okay to lie, to cheat, to sneak around? I couldn't even imagine how confused she must be, drawing pictures of two dads, thinking this was normal. How long had Sarah been feeding her these lies, twisting her little mind? It made me sick. I pulled over to the side of the road, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I felt the tears burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not yet. Not until I figured out what the hell I was going to do. That night I went back home. Not because I wanted to see Sarah, but because of Lily. She was my priority. I had to think about her. But as I walked through the door, the house felt different, colder, like a place I didn't recognize anymore. I could hear Sarah in the kitchen, probably pretending like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just ripped our family apart. I saw her sitting there, scrolling through her phone as if everything was normal. I didn't say a word. Instead, I went upstairs, back to the attic. This time, though, I had a plan. I took everything, the bed, the clothes, the nightgown. I dragged it all down to the backyard, piled it up, and lit a match. The flames rose higher and higher, consuming every piece of evidence, every trace of their disgusting little affair. I stood there, watching it burn, the heat licking my face, feeling like I was finally taking control of something, anything. Sarah came out, saw what I was doing, and screamed. "What the hell are you doing, Mike?" "I'm getting rid of your trash," I said calmly, watching the flames. "You wanted more? Well, here's your more." She lunged at me, trying to stop me, but I pushed her back, my voice low and full of cold fury. "You don't get to control this anymore. You don't get to destroy me and walk away without consequences." After I burned everything, Sarah stormed back into the house, her face red with fury, yelling at me like I was the one who had done something wrong. Her voice was sharp, slicing through the night air, but I didn't care anymore. The flames in the backyard crackled loudly, and in that moment, it felt like the last of my old life was being incinerated along with it. She stood in front of me, arms crossed, trying to stare me down like she always did when she thought she could control the situation. "You're crazy, Mike. You can't just burn my stuff like that." I raised an eyebrow, my voice steady, colder than I thought possible. "Your stuff? That was my house, my life, my family. You threw it all away the second you snuck him in, so don't stand there and act like you're the victim. You don't get to be pissed off because I burned the evidence of what a piece of trash you've been." For the first time since this nightmare started, she didn't have a comeback. She just stared at me, eyes wide, like she couldn't believe I was standing up to her. Maybe she had gotten too used to manipulating me, too used to thinking she could get away with anything. But now it was different. I had reached my limit, and there was no going back. "Sarah, this marriage is over," I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "You want more? You got it. I'll give you more space than you could ever need. Go be with him for all I care. But you're not dragging me or Lily through your lies anymore." Her expression shifted from shock to rage in a heartbeat. "Oh, so that's it? You're just gonna give up? What about Lily, huh? You're gonna abandon her too?" That hit me in the gut. But I wasn't going to let her twist this around. "Don't you dare use Lily to guilt me, Sarah. I'm not abandoning her. I'm protecting her. From you and your twisted games. You don't get to decide what's best for her," she snapped, her voice shrill, shaking with fury. "She needs both of us." "Maybe," I said quietly, "but not like this. Not with you lying to her, making her think having a secret second daddy is normal. You've already done enough damage." I could see the panic start to set in. She realized she had overplayed her hand, that I wasn't the same Mike who used to roll over and take her excuses. The reality was sinking in for her now. She was about to lose everything. "You're really leaving?" she asked, her voice softer now, almost pleading. But I could see the manipulation behind her eyes. "I'm not leaving," I said firmly. "You are." Took a few days to get everything in order. I spoke to a lawyer, filed for divorce, and made sure Lily would stay with me. I wasn't going to let Sarah screw up our daughter's life any more than she already had. Sarah, of course, threw a fit, acting like I was the bad guy for wanting to end the marriage, like I was breaking up the family. But I wasn't going to let her gaslight me anymore. I knew what was real, and I knew what was best for Lily. The hardest part was explaining everything to my daughter. She was too young to understand all the details, and I didn't want to poison her mind against her mother. But I also couldn't let her grow up thinking that Sarah's behavior was okay. I sat her down and told her that sometimes adults make mistakes and sometimes families change. She cried, of course. I did too. But I promised her that no matter what, I would always be there for her. Sarah moved out shortly after that. She tried to fight me on the divorce, on custody, on everything. But in the end, the truth was undeniable, and the courts sided with me. She was given visitation rights, but she knew her game was over. The first few weeks after she left were hard. The house felt empty, too quiet. There were moments when the weight of it all hit me. The betrayal, the lies, the loss. It was like a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. But every day it got a little better. I focused on Lily, on making sure she was okay, on rebuilding our life together. There's still anger inside me, a deep, burning rage at Sarah for what she did, for how she shattered our family. But there's also relief that it's over, that I'm no longer living in the dark, no longer being lied to every day. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, It's that trust is everything. Once it's broken, there's no going back. No amount of apologies or excuses can fix what's been shattered. If someone shows you who they are, believe them. Don't make excuses for them. Don't let them manipulate you into thinking you're the problem. And if you're ever in doubt, if something doesn't feel right, trust your gut. Because I should have listened to mine a long time ago. That's it. That's how it all went down. I wish I had a happier ending to share, but at least now I'm free. And for the first time in a long time, I'm actually starting to feel like myself again. If anyone out there is going through something similar, don't ignore the red flags. You deserve better than to be someone's fool. Stay strong.